My background in eBay is that I was part of the team that founded it over here in the UK back in '99. And when I told my mother I was working for a company called eBay back in '99, she thought I was working for some sort of porno site, because that was all that was going on out there back then. But I worked there for 7 years, worked in all sorts of jobs. Finally, the community manager, so in charge of all their social media before social media was social media, when it was an online community. And I'm the author of Make Serious Money on eBay UK, which is the best-selling guide to how to sell on eBay, which is the best place to buy it, ironically, is on Amazon. By far the cheapest place to go for various reasons. So I want to sort of rattle through global trading on eBay. But to be honest, quite a lot of this applies to other marketplaces. And I'm going to assume that you know the basics of selling on eBay. They are exactly the same whether selling locally or internationally. There's no particular difference there, apart from setting your filters to where you're willing to ship to. So, you know, don't be scared on that. If you sell locally in Britain, you've got a good start. And the second assumption I'm making, which is quite an important assumption, is that you do want to sell overseas. And the reason I say this is the vast majority of eBay sellers do not. The vast majority of UK sellers don't set their postage options to go overseas, and only about 1 in 10 eBay sales in the UK go overseas. And I'll talk a bit. I think I'll cover it in a bit, but I think it's fear. And I think that a lot of people are very scared about selling on eBay when they need not be. But I'll cover some of the ideas. So I'm going to rattle through some statistics because Emma asked for some numbers. The country moved back into recession in the second quarter. Extraordinarily, e-commerce has continued to grow, at an extraordinary pace. So in terms of numbers, year-on-year growth in e-commerce is about 15% in March over the year before. Month-on-month, about 9%, according to the Office for National Statistics. Mobile commerce is a huge part of this growth. So people using their smartphones to buy is the big news, the big deal, and their iPads, of course, as well. And that's grown 254% year on year, and is scheduled to continue growing at that rate. In terms of Britain, we're the most we're the keenest nation in the world when it comes to e-commerce. So by head of population, every month, we spend £44 online. That's the highest of any country in the world, beating Germany and the US. And the total UK spend in March was 5.6 billion. So it's a pretty hefty chunk of the economy. It's about, excluding petrol, about 15 pence in the pound of the consumer pound is spent online. E-commerce is doing well, but as I say, most people are sticking to Britain. And that's kind of foolish because, as I said, it's very easy to start trading internationally. And I wanted to sort of look at some of the ways that you can really maximise that and sort of get excited and maybe overcome that fear that I mentioned. But I just want to say the first thing I sold online was in 1999, and it was a Doctor Who money box with Tom Baker on. So I have been doing it quite a few years. And it hasn't really changed. The only thing I might say is it's actually perhaps got a little bit more tricky. And that's largely because of postage. The new Royal Mail postage rates are going to come in on the 30th of April. And airmail is going to be significantly increased. Some airmail rates will be going up 60%. So that's going to make some of those postage issues more tricky. So next time you see someone from our glorious coalition government saying they're doing everything for overseas trade, deregulating Royal Mail ain't one of them. So that's my only political point, which is where me and Emma disagree on. We're on the other side. We're on the opposite sides of the fence. I'm on the red side instantly. One of the biggest advantages we have in selling from Britain is that we are Britain. I know we've got some overseas friends here, But selling from Britain is actually a great brand name. When you look at the sort of trust factors and other global sort of economic things, people like buying from Britain. We have an amazing array. First up, we have probably one of the most sophisticated consumer cultures in the world, bar America perhaps. The products that we can get here are typically more varied. But there's also that unique British thing. I don't suppose the Olympics and the Jubilee are going to hurt us there either. So I think there is a thing to remember. When you are selling overseas from Britain, be British. And that is sort of also speaks to another point I'll get to in a minute, which is about language. When you're thinking about selling overseas as well, you sort of think, scary place, the world, 200 nations. I don't know how I'm going to sell to Tibet and Ecuador and Guatemala and wherever. The simple fact is, when you're selling overseas, you don't have to sell to the whole world. You can choose where you sell to. So the easiest place to start is the European Union, not least because that has free movements of goods and services, so no import duties. Other markets which you can think about, obviously the United States and Canada, Australia is a very popular destination, but we also have very strong trading lines in Britain with sort of the low countries of Belgium, Holland, Scandinavia, and Germany. They're people who are very happy to buy from Britain. The other thing to think about when you're sort of choosing where you're going to sell to is the lifeblood of e-commerce is the postal system. So you can say, let's sell to the European Union, and that's great. But mark my words, the postal service in Italy and Greece is significantly worse than the postal service in Britain or Germany. And I think probably one of the most problematic countries to sell to is actually Italy, because their postal service is terrible. So that's sort of worth bearing in mind. So I think when you've sort of chosen some of those places where you want to sell to, is just to start small, a few bits, find your sea legs, as it were, and then sort of ramp up. I think a lot of people get trouble because they imagine they're going to be immediately sending massive consignments off to Kathmandu or wherever, and you don't have to risk that at all. You can say, I'll start with Ireland, I'll start with France, I'll start with Germany, and then go overseas. Of course, you can. It's possible to send anything anywhere in the world. And I know an eBay seller who's actually sold a book to Antarctica. Some of the signs, the post only comes twice a year, but you can get a parcel to Antarctica. I think they're considered as British forces overseas, so it's actually quite cheap as well. But there's only about 40 people there, so it's not the biggest global audience. So when thinking about that, I suppose, starting small, looking at the countries you want to do, being British is about taking control. It can be daunting, it can be scary, but all the decisions are yours. So don't be rolled into doing something you don't want to do. Now, I'd say there are three key problems you've got to overcome, three barriers, sort of logistical barriers. The first is payments. Quite an easy one to solve, depending on your marketplace. If it's eBay, it's PayPal. If you're selling on Amazon as a trader, it'll be their payment system. Don't go off-piste on payments. It's where everything goes wrong. Money orders, beads, animal teeth, whatever, do not accept them. Just PayPal and proper accredited systems. That's all there is to be said about it. I mentioned a bit about postage. Postage is going up. AML will be affected on that. Fixed rate postage applies to all of the European Union. So if you know how much your parcel is to anywhere outside Britain in the EU, that's what it will cost everywhere. So it's quite easy to have immediately 27 countries, or whatever it is, 29 countries, that you can sell to straight up. Don't neglect international couriers. Especially if you've got something like maybe antiques or bigger items, big ticket items, international couriers are not prohibitively expensive for the right value item. So for instance, I know this because my colleague at Tamebay, Chris, did it last week. A 6-kilo parcel to France was just over £20, including VAT. Now, if you're selling something very valuable and at a good price, that is not massively expensive. And it's about that was about a 5-day turnaround. So that's pretty good. Parcels2go.com are usually the people to look at for comparison shopping. The other problem is language, and again, I don't think this is the most massive problem we have. If we weren't speaking English, perhaps, it's very obvious that most Europeans, when they come to eBay, are quite happy to deal in English. Educational systems in Europe, when it comes to languages, are superior to our own, and they can, as a second political point, and they seem to be quite happy to deal in English, or at least have a good go. You can try the sort of Google Translate things, the Babel fish stuff. You know, you can end up with sort of Monty Python style funnies, but it's worth a go. And great swathes of the e-commerce world speak English. Well, apart from the Americans, there's the Canadians, the Australians, the Kiwis. Most of Northern Europe seem perfectly fluent in English, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. So think about risks then. I suppose there are only two risks. The first is fraud. You know, what are the chances when your parcel is whizzing around the world that it will get lost, or the person who receives it says it's been stolen or something? I think this depends on the countries you're selling it to. There seem to be some countries which are riskier than others, and I think that you've just got to take a judgment on it. Insure everything that goes if you can. Some things you can't insure. For instance, it's very difficult to get insurance on pottery and glass, for perhaps obvious reasons. But most things can be insured, and buyers should be willing to shoulder that cost. The other risk is duties, so import duties. Now, the buyer might be faced with those. So put in your listings that might be a risk. You can make your own decision about whether you're going to tick that little custom slip as a gift, because it is illegal, but you can make that decision yourself.
Can I not tweet that?
Look, the simple fact is, if you want to lower the risk of your item having to pay duties, tick gift. Is it foolproof? No. Is it illegal? Yes. Make up your own decision. Make up your own minds. Some countries are more tricky than others. Canada, for instance, is extremely stringent on import duties, and has the most complicated customs code in the world. I'm not saying that Britain's any better. We've got 15,000 different import and export tax numbers. There's another thing for the coalition to simplify when you make the minister. Of course, once again, the EU comes up trumps on this because there are no duties within the EU. Australia is quite strict as well. The US, the States, has become more strict in recent years, post sort of 9/11 and the Homeland Security Act and things like that. But that tends to not have increased the amount of people who are paying the duty. It's slowed down the postage process. So things arrive in the States, and it seems like, they don't talk about it, that they X-ray everything. As far as I know, no one has ever smuggled a bomb in through the post. So as to whether it makes any difference, I don't know. But it does mean that whereas airmail to the States could sometimes be 2 and 3 days, is now very much 5 and 6 days. And I just think, when should you start doing this? When's the right time to start trading overseas? And I think you've just got to get on with it. It's one of those things. I think that a lot of people in business suffer from a malaise. They have squillion ideas, but they never get on and do them. And I think that unless you go and do them, you're never going to get started. And I think factor in a few screw-ups. The first 10 are going to be traumatic, difficult, learning experiences. But that's how it works. No one said it was very easy. If it was very easy, people would be doing it. But the reason to do it is because the timing's good. The pound is relatively weak. Britain's quite a popular place to buy from at the moment. There's the IMRG, which is the Internet Retailing Group, have said that demand from overseas has increased. The Jubilee and the Olympics, I think, will make a difference. But in terms of why you should do it is the size of the opportunity. So if you reckon on Britain doing something like 50 billion quid's worth of e-commerce every year, in the States, that's $220 billion. So it's a much bigger audience. In Western Europe, so it includes us, it's $166 billion a year. So it's about opening up the size of the global audience, the buyers who can find your goods, taking it from Britain, from 69 million people to potentially 3 and 4 billion people around the world who are connected to the internet. But the killer stat for me is that globally, in the next 3 years, e-commerce is forecast to grow 90%. And that's again according to the IMRG. So e-commerce is just going to go through the roof. So if you're not plugged in to networks at home and abroad, you're really missing out, frankly, on the biggest commercial opportunity probably since the Roman Empire. It's huge. So get on with it. Thanks.